So I thought I had actually already done a review for this book, but I haven't, so I'm a little behind. But today I am going to be doing a review for The Noble Servant today. Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Yes, today I am going to be reviewing The Noble Servant by Melanie Dickerson. I totally thought I reviewed this earlier, but I was scrolling through my videos and I didn't. So I'm going to review it today for you guys. I was sent a copy of this through the Fiction Guild for a free and honest review. I also picked up a copy myself because I didn't know for sure I was getting this one from the Fiction Guild. So as you guys will know, I gave that one away in a giveaway as well as my copy of The Silent Songbird. But today I'm going to be reviewing this one because I was sent it for a review from the Fiction Guild. So here we go with my free and honest review. So my overall rating of The Noble Servant was a 4-star rating. Some people had mixed reviews about this. Some people said it wasn't their favorite Melanie Dickerson. Some said it was their favorite Melanie Dickerson. So it kind of was a mixed bag for a lot of people. The Noble Servant is the third book in the Thornbeck or the medieval fairy tale retelling series. So it is not connected to the Hagenheim fairy tale retellings, even though it looks like it could be. You guys should know by now my rant about these cover changes, so we're not going to go into it. But this is part of the Thornbeck Fairy Tale Retellings trilogy. The Thornbeck trilogy is where she mashes two fairy tales together. So this was a mashup of The Goose Girl and The Prince and the Pauper. I'm not familiar with the story of the Goose Girl or the fairy tale of the Goose Girl. I haven't read any retellings or the original. I am vaguely familiar with The Prince and the Pauper. I've had different movie adaptations of it and just different retellings of it. So I have the understanding of a switch between identical or look-alike pauper and prince type storyline. So I was more familiar with that. So I picked up more of those elements from that. So this follows Lady Magdalene, who we did meet in The Beautiful Pretender, and Lady Magdalene was an awesome side character. I really enjoyed her as a side character, and then Melanie kind of rippled her into her own story in The Noble Servant. So the nice thing about that is I can give you the synopsis of this book without spoiling the previous books, even though there are minor spoilers to the previous books in this book if you read them out of order, but the synopsis doesn't give those away. So Magdalene has been given an invitation and a proposal of marriage from the Duke of Wolfburg, which she met very briefly when she was in Thornbeck at the Margrave's house, palace, place, I don't know, place of residence. When she was there, she met the Duke of Wolfburg, and they haven't really connected since, but then out of the blue she gets this proposal of marriage, which is going to save her people and her little area from poverty. And so she accepts it knowing that it will be the best for her people and will save her people from poverty. At the same time, she did meet him, so she found him very amiable and isn't really in complaint of marrying him, even though she doesn't know him very well. So it's kind of a win-win situation. Along the way, though, she is forced to trade places with her maidservant in a despicable plot between her servant and her servant's father. She is then forced to play a servant. When they arrive to the Wolfburg castle, she has to pretend to be a servant. No one knows her real identity. No one has met her, but she discovers there is a more dangerous plot, and she's not the only one with a secret identity to hide. I enjoyed Magdalene's character again. I also enjoyed Stefan's character, the Duke of Wolfburg, which we met in the previous book very, very briefly, so we got more introduced to him. So I really enjoyed both of their characters and a lot of the development that they go through. They're kind of working together to unravel this plot. Like, there's kind of two sinister plots in the background, one to usurp Magdalene's place and one for Stefan's place. So they kind of have to keep each other's identities private, at the same time try to help each other out by regaining their rightful place. So the storyline flows pretty much the same way most of Melanie Dickerson's storylines flow. You kind of get the idea of how she writes her books and how her storylines flow. There is always some sort of dastardly plot in the background too that is to solve. I like the way, even though you can sometimes predict how the storylines are going, the plots still remain very unpredictable in some places. So I do still like Melanie's writing and the way she presents a story. Also like the integrity and the purity of her characters and some of the great character developments and kind of just personal decisions they have to go through. So I like the way that the faith aspect is very nicely woven into the story, where it's not overshadowing everything else, but it's not left out and left you guessing as to where the faith element takes place. I also like to, at the end of this book, there's a huge element of forgiveness that plays out really well, and just Magdalene and Stefan both have this heart of forgiveness and this humility. Stefan learns a lot of humility throughout the story, so again, a lot of character growth and development with him, and with Magdalene as well, to kind of grow a backbone in a way, so she kind of strengthens her character. So there's a lot of growth between her characters. So even though sometimes like the storyline can be somewhat predictable and you know that there's going to be fairy tale elements woven in there, like I said, the plot can sometimes keep you guessing as well, but it's really the characters that hold and bring Melanie's books together, and I just like reading her characters. So it's like a great fluffy storyline with fantastic, deep, complex, and great character growth. It is really the core of what it is to enjoy Melanie's books. Is just really what it sums up is her characters, and also her way with her storylines to create a realistic historical time setting, but still put in elements of a fairy tale retelling, but still stays in that realistic world setting without the magical fairy godmothers and sparkling fairy dust and all of that stuff. So it's very realistic, and you can actually imagine these things happening to these characters. Even though I still gave it a 4-star rating, again, it wasn't my all-time favorite Melanie Dickerson book. I'm still sitting pretty close for The Silent Songbird and The Beautiful Pretender. Somewhat pretty much up there for my favorites. Out of the trilogy, The Beautiful Pretender is my favorite. Both The Huntress of Thornbeck and The Noble Servant are kind of give or take for me. They're both really good books, but not my favorites out of the trilogy for sure. Sometimes I do wish that there was a little bit of a difference with her storylines, but she is coming up with some different fairy tale retellings, which will be really interesting along with the Hagenheim fairy tale retellings. The one thing that maybe didn't make it a 5-star for me is the predictable plot line and storyline again. Like, you know it's going to all wrap up in a happily ever after in the end. So it does get kind of predictable, which is why I don't give it a 5-star rating, but the characters drive the story, which is why I gave it a 4-star rating. And again, with the content, honestly, Melanie Dickerson's books are 100%, 110% guaranteed a clean read. I just love how the romances build, but they really start out with friendships as well. So the friendships and the romances are really nicely slow burned. Even though you have arranged marriages and stuff, a lot of the time there is more of that slow burn, and the arranged marriages don't always work out the way they're supposed to in the storyline. So you really get that development of a friendship, of a relationship, and then that realization that they are meant to be together. So overall, for The Noble Servant, like I said, guaranteed a clean read, fantastic storyline, can get somewhat predictable storylines, but really good plot lines, if that makes sense. But really great character-driven stories with Melanie's books. So overall, 4-star rating, highly recommended. It was our Coffee and Chapters Christian YA Book Club pick for June. June? It was June. It was June. I forget already. So it was our Coffee and Chapters Christian YA pick. All of Melanie's books end up on our list because we're pretty much the Melanie Dickerson fan club. I'll never get tired of her books, really. Like, even though sometimes I've said her storylines can get a little bit predictable and you know what's going to happen, kind of, I still read them. Like, they're such a fluffy, fun read that I just have to have on my shelves. So that was my review for The Noble Servant by Melanie Dickerson. This one seemed a little scatterbrained because all of my reviews for Melanie Dickerson are starting to feel the same. But if you guys do have any questions, please leave them down below. I will always answer your questions if you have any content or storyline or any just general questions about the book. I will always do my best to answer those for you guys. So leave any questions you have in the comments below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!